Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Unbroken. A lot of prestige pictures are directed in a way that you can tell the director is kind of enamored of the subject matter, so much so that it usually ruins the actual story of the film. And Unbroken is probably the worst example of that I've seen this year. You can definitely tell Angelina Jolie, who directed this film, very much cares about the story of Louis Sabrini and his story, which is an amazing real-life story that he really went through. They wanted to make it a movie for a very long time, since actually Universal Pictures has owned the rights since about 1957. This is actually based on a book also called Unbroken, and this was made by Universal. They've wanted to make this for a very long time, and it is a crazy, amazing real-life story, but she really doesn't understand how to adapt Unbroken and make it a really compelling narrative. That's the problem with these prestige pictures in general. This is an example that shows how that really gets in the way of enjoying a movie like this, because there's certain sequences that are very compelling, that are interesting, that show that Angelina Jolie could be an interesting big budget, a studio kind of director, but she ruins the landing and overcompensates the length of this film to such an extent that it's just like, I can't really like it. She's her own worst enemy in terms of all the detail and her love of this incredible true life story. Louis Sabrini, who was born to Italian-American immigrants, he is kind of a latchkey kid who is getting in all sorts of trouble, and then as he's running away from cops, his brother realizes that he can run really well and that he should try out for the track team, and he's an incredibly good runner, and he eventually breaks records and then goes to the Olympics, where he eventually breaks a record and is a big deal. In fact, in real life, actually, Hitler was a big fan of his and wanted to meet with him, but they cut that out. Although I think they could have found a way to get it to work, frankly. When you have a character in a movie, you kind of want Hitler liking him probably to be a bit demoted, because people aren't really so into stuff that Hitler liked, you know. And then after that, he joins the Air Force and fights in World War II when his plane is on a rescue mission to find another plane that has gone down. His plane goes down, and him and two of his plane mates or shipmates survive the plane crash and are stuck at sea for 47 days. One of them dies, and then are found by the Japanese, who take him and his fellow soldier Phil into various different Japanese detention camps as Louis is tortured because of his status as an Olympian, because they want to make an example out of him, as Louis refuses to be broken and to show that they can mess with him and ruin him as he keeps going on through all these horrible, terrible experiences that he has gone through during World War II. I really love the opening sequence where it's from the perspective of inside the plane during this air fight, which I thought was interesting, because when you think of air fights, you think of amazing flight cinematography, and this was shot by Roger Deakins, so certainly I'm sure just a normal plane fight shot by him would have been amazingly beautiful. But what she does in that sequence is interesting because it introduces Louis as a great guy. He's a great guy, he's looking after everybody, he's making sure everybody's okay, and they've got everything they need, and if they've been injured in the fight, he starts taking care of them. And you already get, he's awesome, this guy's great, he's super good and stuff. And then they cut to like him growing up. I kind of wonder what she was doing with the character, showing how he became this famous track star and an Olympian, and showing how he became that, because that almost feels like ruining her point of him being this great guy. The funny thing is about all that, there's no real arc to him. The arc to him is that he gets tortured and fucked with, and all these horrible things happen to him, but he doesn't really grow in the movie. He does at the beginning, and then through title cards at the very end. That's about it. And the actor who plays him, Jack O'Connell, that's one of the things that's interesting about this movie, is most prestige pictures at least have really good acting, even if the film doesn't really work. When I watched this movie, I wasn't thinking about how good he was in the role. It wasn't really this really outstanding performance. You're kind of more wrapped up in what's happening to him, not like how good he is as the character. And it didn't feel like she was as interested in his performance as she was in what was going on, which could be thought of as like good direction normally, but I think it kind of hurts the movie. They give you moments with him, but they're kind of the expected moments that you're supposed to have, and that doesn't really help the character. It's an amazing story that he went through, but it almost feels like we're taking moments from other movies that were big prestige pictures, like Forrest Gump. There were various shots that look very similar to Forrest Gump when he was running, Life of Pi when he was stuck on the raft. This wasn't as interesting and as great of a journey as that, but I guess they weren't really going for that. But you can think of Bridge on the River Kwai. When I was thinking about prestige pictures in general and this movie, I understand they have a great true life story and that would make a good movie theoretically. But when I think of like great prestige pictures that I've actually liked, like Amadeus for example, I don't like Amadeus because of Mozart. I like Amadeus because it's a really good story and a really good movie. I hear people quote Amadeus and talk about Amadeus still to this day, and it's not because it's a movie about Mozart. So when I look at a film like Unbroken, I think of it in the same way of The Theory of Everything and The Imitation Game. These are all important stories to our culture and interesting stories, and stories that should be good movies theoretically. Someone should be able to make a good movie out of this. But then when you look at Unbroken, it seems like more than those other two films, Angelina Jolie cares too much about the pain and suffering of it. She never directs it in a way where you care about the other guys in the detention camps. Is really emphasizing the torture of it, how awful it was, how terrible it was. That seems to be the main focus of it. Now apparently the book really is heavy-handed about that, so I don't know if that's because of the book that it is based on. I've seen films where people are in detention camps in World War II, like Stalag 17, or even like Hogan's Heroes, which isn't realistic, I'm pretty sure. Unbroken doesn't seem to understand how to get that to work. It just seems to think like, oh, everything's awful and this was an incredibly terrible thing, and it doesn't really want to go beyond the characters and make them interesting and show how they kind of dealt with being in these things for all these years. It just seems like they were like super bummed out the whole time, and I think that's like one of her faults as a director, is she should have really understood like how to make it a lot more compelling, how to get me into this real life story that's compelling in itself. It just relied too heavily on that and wasn't really concerned as much as getting me into the story. It just wanted me to understand that he was a really great guy, and that's about it. Apparently he became religious later. Apparently he had a sweetheart at home, which like at the end during the title cards I was like, did I miss that? It would have been interesting to see him start to become religious in the camps or something like that. When he's on the raft he says that, you know, if God gets him through this, he'll serve him throughout his life. Roger Deakins shot this film and he's a great cinematographer, and I will pretty much see anything he shot, which is 100% why I saw this movie. There are certain sequences that were very beautiful and he did a great job with, and you can tell his framing is excellent. And it's not like when the Coen brothers work with Deakins or when Sam Mendes works with Deakins. Certain shots are really outstanding and amazing, and you can tell he's one of the best cinematographers alive. There are certain shots where Angelina Jolie just let him have a beautiful shot, but they didn't really seem to find a way to really come together and get the cinematographer and director to work cohesively the way the Coens and Sam Mendes do. Like, watch Skyfall and then watch this movie and you're like, that was shot by the same guy? Because Sam Mendes found a way to get that to work for the ambiance and the feel of the movie and those action sequences, and I don't feel like Angelina Jolie really got into Deakins in that way. This film was also written by the Coen brothers or adapted by the Coen brothers and two other writers who aren't as good as the Coen brothers, and it does not feel like it was written by the Coen brothers whatsoever. I kind of doubt they even did really, but even though their names are on it, it's too really on the nose, and I think its on the noseness really hurts it. But then towards the end of the film it gets incredibly hammy and self-serving, and then it has the every prestige picture's gotta have PowerPoint presentation between the end of the movie and the beginning of the credits, and this one has one that just includes all these details that makes me think I watched another act entirely in title cards, which is as cinematic as watching a PowerPoint presentation, although I would say PowerPoint presentations might be more cinematic because they have those cool wipey things and sounds and stuff. This is just listening to music while title cards told me about how he got married and how he found God. This movie dragged on and on at a certain point. She didn't really know how to end it. She didn't have a point with Unbroken. The point was this story was amazing and brutal, and that was like the whole story. 12 Years a Slave did a lot more with an even worse story, and this is just like so interested in the story it can't get free of it. Subject matter is not over storytelling, and it never will be, and I think Unbroken proves that more so than any of the other prestige pictures. It's probably the worst one because its hamminess just killed it for me. And I was actually compelled for a good portion of it. I was fairly into it, but then I just really fell off in my interest towards the end. I've never seen an ending turn me off to a movie more than Unbroken. I've seen a lot of different World War II films, but I think this one proves the point that I've thought for a while with World War II films, is that it's a genre that doesn't know where it's going to go anymore. Quentin Tarantino killed Hitler, and no one's been able to figure out what to do with the genre after that, and Unbroken just cements that for me. The film itself is just kind of a slog of torture and someone being too enamored with the true story to really tell it. So if you have seen Unbroken and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.